The next speaker on our list is Hank Keogh, specialty seed farmer from Avoca Seed in Corvallis. And he was part of that work group that came out of SB 789, as Amy mentioned, and talked about and will talk about his experience dealing with cross-contamination, his concerns as a grower, and how this will impact him personally. So Hank, thanks so much for being here. Take it away.
Hi, thanks. My name is Hank Keogh. I co-own Avoca Seed. We're right outside of Corvallis. And we grow a variety of brassicas. We grow all the brassica species that, Oleracea, Napus, Rapa, Juncea, and sometimes radish. And we sell to seed companies around the nation. We are certified organic. I wanted to start out this kind of taking a practical, what are the practical implications of maintaining isolation distances? And to say that kind of there's three categories within the species that Dr. Myers was talking about. Canola is for oil. It can either be for food consumption or it can be for like industrial oil. But it's for oil. The seed is crushed and the oil is extracted. Seed, specialty seed, is for food. When resown, all these these seeds grow into all the diverse vegetable varieties that you find at the farmer's market or grocery store. And then the third category is forage brassicas, and these are planted in a mix with other things, and they are for animals. Forage brassicas are for animals. So all these three things, these are all seed crops that could be grown in the Willamette Valley, but they're different groups. They have different needs. They have different things. So what is at stake here? Food security starts with seed security. Vegetable seed must be pure to type in order to be useful for farmers to grow and harvest, and safe for people to eat. Oregon's Willamette Valley is a renowned seed production region all over the world and is home to an established and thriving specialty vegetable seed industry. The third thing that's at stake in my mind is this idea of the carrying capacity of brassica species in general of the Willamette Valley. There's, in terms of pests and diseases, like thinking like big scale systems biology thinking, there's only so much of one type of plant that you can grow in an area before it is overwhelmed by pests and diseases that eat it. And that has been managed very well by the blackleg rule has been very effective in managing blackleg, which is a very serious seed-borne disease. And that is the type of systems thinking that needs to be applied to this issue. And it also brings home the point that the entire valley has to be managed. The big rectangle of the Willamette Valley Protected District is the thing we need to be talking about if we need to manage the whole place. So why is isolation important? Isolation ensures seed purity and true to type vegetables. That's what my customers are looking for. They're looking for vegetables, not some crossed up vegetables. The industry standard from the WVSSA is a 3-mile isolation between brassica species in the same species. Like between, if I'm growing a brassica napus and my neighbor is growing a brassica napus, there has to be 3 miles between those fields, and that's the industry standard. It is an industry standard that brings in mind not just the science, but also the market implications and experience of growers. Um, uh, yeah. And that comes to this idea of the principle of mutual destruction. That is that between two seed growers, there is a high incentive to not cross-pollinate each other's crops. Both parties would be damaged in that event. And so both parties try to mitigate that risk as much as possible, right? If I'm growing a kale and you're growing a rutabaga, um, I don't want kale in my rutabaga, and you don't want rutabaga in my, or kale. Anyway, there's a high incentive to keep them separate, right? So this is not the case between a canola grower and a seed grower. If some bok choy crosses with canola, it doesn't matter for the canola grower. It all gets crushed and it all becomes oil, and there's no economic hardship. If canola crosses with bok choy, then that seed lot is contaminated. If it's detected, it's 100% loss, and it's unsaleable because it's been contaminated. And hopefully that contamination gets caught soon. Otherwise, it gets grown again, and at some point it gets noticed, and then it becomes unsaleable. Yeah, so contamination is very important, and the imbalance of the contamination risk is something that needs to be kept in mind. So what there's been over the years, so I've been involved with this issue since 2012. And I brought my tractor to the Capitol in 2012 or 2013, one of those years, for one of the hearings. So, and since then, there's been a lot of talk about coexistence between canola and specialty seed. And so I have here this list of some ideas of what are the ingredients for coexistence between canola and specialty seed. So one, I think I mentioned this already, that maintain the current big rectangle boundary of the Willamette Valley Protection District, manage the whole valley, big rectangle. Mandatory pinning. All brassica seed crops, including canola and forage turnips, that are going to be sold for seed. That's their intention, not the gardeners. The intention is to be sold for seed. Must be pinned on a pinning map with 3-mile isolation distance between the same species. This distance may be shortened only by a variance agreed upon by both parties. That sometimes happens within the seed pinning map system that is in place right now. Companies may reach out to each other and say, hey, I want to grow this thing, but it's 2.5 miles away from you. Is that okay? And then the person who has the priority pin can say, yes, that's okay. Thank you for reaching out. Or they can say, no, I'm really, I really need to be sure about this purity of the seed, and that's not okay. But anyway, they work it out. So next, GMO or known GMO contaminated varieties should be managed to a higher standard. And I can think of 2 options here. There could be statute could mandate that no GMO brassicas can be grown in the Willamette Valley Protected District, or those GMO varieties or known contaminated varieties could be held to a higher isolation distance, like 5 to 10 miles. Next thing would be equitable pinning. The pinning system, this is a tricky one, and I don't think it's addressed currently. It's one of those things that's hard to be perfect in all ways. But the pinning system must balance the needs of established producers with while also allowing new producers a way in. It must also balance large seed companies that can contract with many different growers throughout the valley. They call it kind of like movable. They can move their pinning sites around. So balance the large seed companies with smaller growers like me who are essentially fixed in one spot. That like my farm is where it is, not gonna move. I do practice rotation within my farm, but like it's not uh, functionally very far uh, of an isolation to be able to move away from any other pins. Like if my neighbor pinned or grew some canola, I would be out of that species. Um, Conflict management. DoD must have a clear conflict management plan to both prevent cross-contamination and to provide recourse if and when contamination happens. Both of those are necessary. The organ to so there another source of contamination is that's no one's fault is along Oregon's roadsides. You can see it every spring, all those up and down I-5 and other major highways. There's patches of yellow flowers here and there, and that's just seed falling off a truck, and that's yeah, as it gets trucked around. And that's no one's fault, but it's everyone's responsibility. And ODOT could be funded to manage these feral roadside populations of brassica species. And that would reduce a big source of contamination. An acreage cap, we currently have an acreage cap of 500 acres of canola that might gradually be expanded with the precautionary principle. We don't know what the upper limit is. There's no way to find out until you try. And you only know in retrospect once it's kind of too late. So the precautionary principle is important to employ. And lastly, as the acreage cap might be expanded, could be a good idea to have some ongoing pest disease and contamination monitoring, like as there's more and more canola and well, forage turnip, as that acreage possibility increases, there's a check that every year it's like, okay, the flea beetles are staying the same. Great, let's keep raising the acreage cap. Oh, but this year the flea beetles are off the charts. Okay, the acreage cap stays the same. Something like that. In this way, we might devise a system that is self-regulating in real time and at some point arrives at the possibly fluctuating carrying capacity of the Willamette Valley. So those are my ideas. We don't have to do all of them, obviously, but yeah, that's how I see it. It's a complicated issue, and there's a lot of compromise that needs to happen. That's
Thanks
all.
so much, Hank. As always, we thank our